Okay, so wait. Even before I start the video, right, you have to come at me with White Claw sucks. You know what? All right. You know what? Right after I hit record, you got to come at me with a White Claw sucks. That's violence, and I'll have none of it. None of it in this video. Anyway, here's Sargon. Sargon has the dictionary open, so you know this is going to be a great video. All right? Let's do it.
So I thought that for no particular reason, it might be interesting to talk about the concept of white supremacy and
Why not? That sounds like a gas. Let's fucking do it.
what a white supremacist is.
Oh, yeah.
Because honestly, I'm finding myself actually not knowing what it's supposed to be by any reasonable definition. And I find allegations of it to be thrown around remarkably easily by...
I would agree 3 or 4 years ago. Yes. These days, it's actually pretty easy to be very accurate about calling somebody a white supremacist. I honestly do think so. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I think I even probably said like 3 or 4 years ago, like, not everything is white supremacist, okay? And I was right. And you could say right now that not everything is white supremacist, and you'd be right. But
by people who just a few years ago didn't used to call me a white supremacist. And so I figure we may as well engage with the topic intellectually and see if we can work out what they're trying to tell us.
I like how when Sargon says, we're going to engage with something intellectually, no, we won't. No, we absolutely will not. The last video that I made on Sargon, he was talking about how human beings are mythic creatures and intuition is more important than science. Intellectualism has lost your fucking vocabulary. It's gone. It's not even around anymore, okay? Like, I know I'm already like just kind of pissing all over and we're only 33 seconds in, so I'll try and restrain myself. But Jesus fucking Christ, man.
So Merriam-Webster just defined a white supremacist, and this is a fairly common definition that I personally held. A white supremacist is a person who believes that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control over people of other races.
Sure.
And I don't think that. So if that's what a white supremacist is, then I can categorically say I'm not a white supremacist. I mean, for a start, I don't care about racial superiority one way or another. I am a liberal, and this has been much...
First of all, you're not a liberal. You're not a liberal. And I actually very much agree. I will go out and say this right now. And this might put me at odds with some other people who I have associated with pretty recently, but I do not think that Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, is a white supremacist. I don't think so. I do not think so. I don't think that this man is a white supremacist. I don't think that he thinks that there is something inherently within having the demelanated skin tone that makes somebody, well, superior to another that does not have the same shade of whiteness. That is not to say that he doesn't have extremely troubling views or that he is not in some ways a supremacist, but indicative of skin color, no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
To my chagrin when I'm having to deal with people like the alt-right, because they just don't recognize that race is not something of interest to me. And the same appears to be the same for the radical left, which is this direction for me. But it's also because this is my father, and this is my father giving a cuddle to my nephew. That's the most recent picture I have of him. And as you can see, he's not a white man. My grandfather was a migrant, well, not necessarily, I suppose you'd call him a migrant, from an island off the coast of Africa called St. Helena, made famous for being the place where Napoleon died. This is how I got the surname Benjamin. As you can see from the St. Helena Island info, some of the common names that were given, that have been derived from people from St. Helena, are what they call slave names.
This feels like a defensive video. This feels like people have called me a white supremacist, so let me trace back my slave roots. A little odd. Probably something, if this is done by anybody else that was in like a different political persuasion, you'd probably make an attack video about. Maybe. But you know what? In the sake of being charitable, I'll just say fuck it. All right, cool. Yeah, tell me all about your slave roots. Your slave roots. Cast off those chains, Carl, and embrace your freedom name. I don't know. I almost came up with one, but Jesus Christ, I'm not gonna do that.
Slaves were always known by their first name, not, of course, an original name, a Christian one given by their slave trader or master. When the slave was given his or her freedom, the common practice was to generate a surname from the first name of the previous owner. Examples include Thomas and Benjamin. That's how I got the surname Benjamin, Carl Benjamin, to the best of my knowledge. And so I would suggest that
Maybe
perhaps
that's true.
someone who is the mixed race descendant of slaves. And interesting,
So wait a minute. Is he saying his father immigrated from this island, but was his father a British citizen? Is his father a child of like a Brit and a person who was a bit darker? Like, I'm kind of curious about this. Not that it really even fucking matters, because I really genuinely don't think that he's a white supremacist. But I'm curious why this is such like a sticking point with him.
my father's father came to this country in order to fight the Nazis on behalf of Britain. And
So your father's father, your grandfather, came to this country to fight the Nazis? Did you say to fight the Nazis? Hang on.
mixed race descendant of slaves. And interesting, my father's father came to this country in order to fight the Nazis
Okay.
on behalf of Britain.
Okay.
And he was a farmer, which is a protected profession. So he was put to the fields to
So your grandfather was a British citizen, but was living abroad and came back to England to defend against the Nazis. Okay.
grow food for the war effort. So calling me a white supremacist, saying that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control of people of other races, is just not how I see the world. It's
Yeah, but wait. So there's this hilariously stupid argument that is thrown out all the fucking time. All the time. Of like, well, so and so can't be a white supremacist because they're mixed race, or because they are a person of color, or whatever. That's stupid. That is incredibly fucking stupid. That makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Like, it's one of those heh, caught you on a technicality, kind of like bullshit arguments. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You can say, well, why would anybody be a white supremacist if they're not totally white? Well, okay, there's quite a few ways you can look at this. Number one is they might see themselves as one of the good ones. Hey, I'm sure, Carl, you as a woke person of color is definitely going to be regarded as one of the woke ones when the measure is cast and people are holding up a fucking shade chart to your skin. All right, but anyway, so no, but serious. But Jesus Christ, man, people like voting against their own self-interest. Are you fucking mental? That has happened throughout all of history. But if you need more contemporary examples, Adolf Hitler was famously stating that the Japanese people were honorary Aryans. He allied with the fucking Arabs. He had black soldiers. I mean, fucking A, dude. What the fuck? What the fuck? There were Jewish collaborators that worked with the fucking Nazis. What the fuck? Like, oh, it's impossible. Dude, man, it's just such a weak fucking argument. And it literally only works with the most low IQ of fucking people, okay? It's just that's as simple as that.
It's just not something that I consider to be it's just not my framework. I don't look at the world through the terms of race, presumably because
No, that's not true. You do. You absolutely do. You just allow for making exceptions, but you do.
It was always something that was never highlighted. It was much more about culture. But I don't think that's unique to me, and I don't think it's just because I'm of mixed race descent. I think there are lots of people who are white who are not of mixed race descent who still hold this opinion. And so when an American leftist calls someone a white supremacist, I think this is what's in their mind.
No, not really. I mean, maybe some, I suppose. But the KKK is kind of like a pretty ridiculous example of that. And it's also a lot more complicated than just that as well. I know, like, in Carl's very small peanut-sized fucking mind, like, this is the easy way for people to analyze it. But shockingly, I'm going to give broader context to the concept of white supremacy and race supremacy in America. I'm going to do that right now. Oh, hello.
Sargon seems to be using the My Personal Barbary Slave Trade story. Oddly, a lot of supremacists seem to use that as how they had it worse.
That is actually something that is very common. Very, very common. But here's a very good example. There are groups that are identified as white supremacist that might not necessarily be white supremacists. There are some white supremacist groups in America that do not believe that whites are superior to blacks. And in fact, they are supportive of black people having equal rights to white people. They don't have a problem with black people and white people working together. They don't even care about sharing a water fountain or a bathroom. They simply do not believe in miscegnation. Interbreeding. Interracial relationships. That's it. They're just genetic purists. And they are then considered to be white supremacists. They do exist. That's a real group. It's a very small group. And there are many, 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 many more that just legit believe that whites are superior. But there is a massive, massive difference of opinion in this immense tapestry of how many crazy white supremacist groups there are in the United States. But Sargon's going to water it down to just the KKK because it's in his best interest to make you think that there aren't that many white supremacist groups in the United States. And he'll do that.
And I don't know whether you can tell by the accent, but I'm not from the United States.
Thank fucking God.
I come from England. This is where I've been born and raised. This is where my father was born and raised. And this is where my grandmother and my mother and her parents, well, her parents are actually from Wales, but they moved to England
Same
when she was a
fucking
very
thing.
small child. And so both my parents have grown up in England for their entire lives, or just about their entire lives, and so have myself and my sister, and our children have grown up, like, not together. She has children and I have children separately with different partners. God, I wish I'd said that differently. But the children that we have both spawned with our respective partners are, again, born and bred in the United Kingdom, specifically in the southwest of England. And so it strikes me as being bizarre when an American says to me, "Oh, you are a white supremacist," as if I have any connection with whatever the hell is happening here.
See, that's exactly it. Carl is very well aware that there are massively disparate groups of white supremacist thought. He knows this. He knows it. The concept that Carl is not aware that there is a huge myriad of different white supremacist groups and ideologies and schools of thought is hilarious. He's been doing this long enough, and enough people have told him about it, and he has had to research this stuff enough that he knows. But he's going to water it down to the KKK, the most inconsequential group in America right now. This is true. Nobody gives a fuck about the Klan anymore. But he's not going to bring up any of the actual, like, legit spooky groups that are real and are still operating right now. He's not going to bring it up. This is like he's making a cartoon character out of the fucking argument. I can't be a white supremacist because look how goofy it is and it's nothing compared to me, a proper Englishman. Bop, 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 bop.
Like, I don't even know why the KKK burn crosses. I thought they were Christians. I don't know. But the point is, I have no cultural affinity or relation to whatever this group is doing. And, clearly this is the product for me of a different country. This is the product of something else. Something that happened a long way away. Because it's just not relevant to what I'm doing.
So, wait. You are born and raised in England. England has subjugated and held under the threat of the sword half the fucking world. under colonialism. There have been decrees made from your own government about supremacy throughout history, and I know you know them, but you're not going to compare yourself to them, but the KKK. Like, I mean, I swear to God, the thing is, this video is not for me, and it's not for you. It's not for me, and it's not for you, because we can analyze this from the outside and be like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense, dude. This is entirely for his audience so that they have instruments that when somebody's like, yo, Carl's really fucking weird lately. Why is he talking about this race shit over here? They're like,
well, actually, he can't be a white supremacist because he's not like the KKK. Also, he's from a mixed race family.
that's what this is for. That's what this entire video is for. It has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with, like, passing out the tools of defense to his fucking simpering crowd. Jesus Christ, man.
Because this is the worldview of the European. The European, if white means people from Europe,
It does not. It absolutely fucking does not. Holy shit. White does not mean from Europe. For somebody who's been talking about saving the West, the last thing that you want to do, you dumb motherfucker, is start trying to make claims that European means white. Don't fucking do that. I'm actively trying to help you here. I'm actively trying to fucking help you. Don't make that fucking argument. You're fucking it up, dude.
then this is what we deal with in Europe. I mean, a person from Ireland doesn't necessarily have much in common with someone from Croatia. People from Greece and Turkey, if the Greeks are Europeans, but the Turks actually are pretty much Europeans too. Because if we're talking about race, which I guess we are, this is an ethnogenetic map of Europe. And this is, for me, this is completely outside of politics.
Bitch.
It's called evolution,
Huzzah to
bitch.
5 months of Jeff sanity.
Yeah, what's up, Captain Rachel? Thank you so much. And Creepy Kitty 13 is about to come in with the 2 months.
It's called evolution. Bitch.
It's called evolution, bitch.
Uncle Jeff 2 whole months. Yay, I'm very sick right now and very high on NyQuil.
Oh, I'm so sorry you're having to watch this stream. Oh, tip cheerio. Fine English chap over here, watching some Carl of Swindonness. Yes, listen to him bulk and twist and turn in the wind as we're talking about race. Anyway, yeah, can we get some jilly faces in the chat, please, for our subs? Some real ones. Pour one out for a real one. All right, let's keep going.
As would normally be occurring in Europe. Right? There is no reason in Europe to ever bring up an ethnogenetic map of Europe
Then
when
don't
talking
do
about
it.
the political situations in Europe, because
Then why are
as
you
you can
doing
see,
it?
Near Eastern or Greco-Anatolian in the bottom corner here, the Greeks and the Turks are the same gene pool practically, and yet Greece and Turkey are constantly on the verge of war and hate one another with a passion. So
It's almost like them being possibly sort of ish kind of genetically related doesn't stop them from wanting to kill one another. Like, what, I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
the idea of kind of like racial unity or racial supremacy in Europe is very bizarre. At the very least, it's very bizarre.
No, it really isn't. And you know that you're arguing against something that you already understand. You know that hardcore identitarian European movements usually don't even consider Greek people white. They don't agree with it. They don't agree with it. And even if they do agree that a certain demographic of people are white and they're fighting against it, they will make arguments for unity based upon race, not any other real consideration, but usually just because of race. This is such a weak, stupid argument. I don't even know why you're making. I do not understand why Carl is even bothering to make this fucking video. Does he smell the impending storm of people fucking with him? I can only assume that's what's happening.
I mean, again, look, you can look at other countries. Like the French and the Spanish share a huge amount of genetic material, it seems. So that, like if we can call them races, I don't know what a race is, to be honest.
A strangely woke answer from Mr. Benjamin. Cool. Good on you, buddy.
I don't know how they're defining a race. I don't know whether it's just based on skin tone or whether it's something measurable a posteriori, whatever it is.
Yes.
But the as you can see, the English and the Germans are sort of a mix of Celto-Germanic and originally Germanic, and yet that doesn't stop Britain and England and Germany fighting like cats and dogs for the past 100 years. The same with the French. I mean, where do the French fall into this? Like, are England and France buddies? Because they're not. But even again, I don't know whether this is all the same race. Does all of Europe count as the same race? Because if it does, there's certainly no such thing as white supremacy in Europe. Like, it's not a concept with any particular use. Because if every person in Europe who's indigenous to Europe counts as a white person, there is no overriding white culture. There is no shared like.
Ooh, that's a good possibility. Sargon is doing this video because the UK does not really have free speech laws, and the crazy shit he's been saying may get him in trouble. So he's kind of like trying to like put out something that he can point to and be like, well, look, this is me just trying to figure out race issues, so I can't be saying troubling things. Maybe that might be what it is. Yeah, potentially. Okay, we have two very distinct definitions of race. When it comes to the taxonomic status of naming things as races, there is only one race, and that is the human race. However, we do have in the common vernacular the notion of race, and that is usually, I don't want to say arbitrarily distinctively determined. There is an antiquated way of looking at it into three different taxonomic categories, in which case the Caucasoid, all of the Caucasoid, would be considered the same race. But it's largely unuseful. It doesn't make any fucking sense. There's so much interbreeding at this point that they're irrelevant. And really, race right now is only utilized as a political bludgeon. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. It is wildly, universally useless for something to be an objective measure. I really believe so. Caucasoid reveal when? Oof. You can't listen, Bryzy. You can't hand me at my 100% Caucasoidness. Sorry, girl. It's too much for you.
White identity, and it is a meaningless concept in this continent.
Woke, yes,
because it just doesn't
woke.
matter. Like the idea that this
Woke.
doesn't map to anything.
Damn, that's
Look
woke. Fuck,
look
dude.
at Germany. Germany's got all sorts of ethnic groups. Genetic ethnic, Slavo-Germans, Celtic Germans, and then pure Germans, only Germans. And for everyone else,
Literally nobody gives a fuck about this.
It's just such a nonsense phrase that I can't help but feel that this is actually an American import, because it really looks like it is. I mean, in 1619,
White supremacy was was invented long before white explorers set foot on the American shores. Long before. Sorry, buddy. Nah. But at the same time, if it makes you feel any better, Sargon, if it makes you feel any better, race supremacy was not invented by the whites. It wasn't. It wasn't invented by the whites. It's probably invented by the brown somewhere, some brown culture somewhere, probably in the Indus Valley, like before recorded history, and they were like, I feel like because we were born on this side of the river, we are more superior to you over there on the other side of the river, and then they just fucked them up, more than likely. If it makes you feel better, if it calms down the deep, deep tears in your sorrowful white heart, then I hope that makes a difference for you. Who cares?
England, no black people turned up on a slave ship. We did not have slavery here. Therefore, the sort of cultural traditions of the United States didn't evolve here.
No, you kept all your slaves in the countries you took them. Come on, man.
Things like the KKK. This isn't something that happened in the United Kingdom. This is something that happened in the United States. And incidentally, in the United
Just the United
States,
States,
after the abolition of slavery, after the United States had revolted from the United Kingdom or the British Empire.
Yeah.
And so, again, like, there is just not the sort of cultural baggage.
Wait. We had slaves before we kicked your asses out. Nah, sorry. Slavery in the United States was instituted as an industry while you guys were still in charge. Nah, you don't get to wash your hands of that. Just like you can't wash your hands like from all of the fucking colonialism. Again, this video is not for anybody who understands history. It's not for me. It's not for you. It's for the fucking 14-year-old Sargon acolyte being like,
Yeah, it's wrong that they're calling him a racist. That's not fair.
and then he gives him the tools to try and like help defend him or something. It's really fucking weird.
With regards to race in Europe that there is in the United States.
I'm having way
Because
too much fun with this.
The 1619 Project, as the New York Times magazine has recently admitted, is deeply embarrassing for the New York Times.
In August of 1619, a ship appeared on this horizon near Point Comfort, a coastal port in the English colony of Virginia. It carried more than 20 enslaved Africans who were sold to the colonists. No aspect of the country that would be formed here has been untouched by the years of slavery that followed. The 400th anniversary of this fateful moment, it's finally time to tell our story truthfully. Yeah, sure.
And has definitely damaged the reputation of the paper. But there's no doubt that it is in 1619 that black and white are coined by the English colonists there to distinguish between the free colonists and the people who are being treated as property. Hideous, of course, and no one is more glad than me that the British Empire and the United States fought wars to end slavery, because, as I said, that's part of my origins. If it wasn't for the British...
We still don't even know exactly what you claim your origins actually are. All you've said is that there is some genetic lineage from this North African fucking island that apparently has been owned by the British for a long time, but at least that you were a third-generation British citizen, and that somewhere in there is like some lineage of somebody being vaguely brown, and that maybe the name is Benjamin. But then again, how do we know? Because how he described it was Benjamin can be a name that the slaves would take from their former owners. Well, how do we not know that was actually the name of a slave owner who married one of his slaves, who just happened to get a little bit of brown there in the fucking lineage, you know? Like, we don't know that. He's not making that claim. He has no evidence for that shit. Also, why do I care? I don't. But he does, so I guess that's why I'm like, I don't know. This is weird, dude.
British and the United States. Well, in my case, the British. But in many other people's cases in the United States, there's no guarantee that my family lineage wouldn't still be enslaved. So I'm not against the idea of freeing the slaves. I'm not against the idea of the British doing something useful.
Good, yeah.
But
Everybody's
again,
on that level.
I don't think that's really what's being said, because by what I've laid out here, that it is nonsensical to accuse people from Europe of being like white supremacists, or at least someone like myself at the very least. I mean, maybe there are like American-style white supremacists in Europe, but I'm just not really aware of them. And I just don't see how they would function in the European political environment. So it is very, very strange. But this all comes, I think, from people like Robin DiAngelo. Now, in her book, White Fragility, she says this.
Why in the fuck? Why in the fuck do Sargon and people like similar to him have to keep bringing up this fucking book? Leftists hate this fucking book. They hate this fucking book. Half the time, if you ask a liberal if they like this book, they're like, no, I don't like this book. And half the time, they're like, well, I think maybe I could get something kind of good out of it. Yeah, maybe. Nobody likes this fucking book. Everybody thinks this book is bullshit. But he holds it up as, this is an example of what the left believes. No, it isn't. No, it fucking isn't. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, my God.
It's explicit this, and I found this fascinating. White people recall it the idea of the term white having meaning.
Wait. Is there a Sargonite in the chat? Are you a Sargonite? The central scrutinizer? Bro, I will fucking have a conversation about this with you right now. Legit. I will have a fucking conversation with you about this right now. If you are interested, I will absolutely fucking talk to you about this. You can just fucking hop into my Discord, dude. I'll switch over here right now. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna see if you pop in. If you pop into my Discord, you can find it by typing in ! Discord, and you can pop into the fucking, where is it? Waiting room. I will fucking legit talk to you right now. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just for full disclosure, I'm putting this out there, and I'm recording this right now as a video. I will put this out there, and I already have before. I do not think that Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, is a white supremacist. I don't think so. But I do think he's an idiot. I do. Absolutely. And I do think he's got some fucked up ideas about culture, about nations, and about the way in which we should design our societies. I do believe that. 100%. But I don't think he's a white supremacist. I just wanted you to know, just in case you're, like, mistaken this stream, because, like, I'm not out here to call Sargon a white supremacist. I don't think he is. But this is a really dumb fucking video.
Because, as she explains, they consider themselves really to be American.
Hey, no stress. Hey, guys. No, don't put any stress on that dude. Like, if he doesn't want to come on, he doesn't want to come on. It's okay. I'm just saying, like, if he's feeling like pumped up and shit, he wants to fucking talk to me about it. Like, I'll talk to him about it. I'm all about it, dude. I'm all about conversations.
Americans, because it's an American issue that she's addressing here. And you can have systems that are racist without having racists within them and things like this.
Sure.
I can't say I agree. I think that a racist system would have racists in it. I think that you couldn't have all of these avowed anti or non-racists walking around operating a system that designed to hurt people of a certain race.
Well, okay. So I guess that's kind of like a weird splitting of the hairs thing, but I would have to then ask the question of, what about sentencing disparity? The fact that people who are not white tend to, even when you account for the differences in factors of earlier record or the extenuating circumstances of the case, even when you account for all of these things, people who are not white tend to be sentenced to longer prison sentences than white people. Now, do I think that means that there has to be racist people inside of every aspect of the institution for prison sentencing? No, I don't think so. But do I think that there's enough that it's made a statistical anomaly that is actually a problem? Yeah, I do. Because that's the only way to explain it. That's just rationalism. That's just trying to, like, understand, like, where it's at. I'm sure if we looked around, we could find plenty of places, plenty of counties where, like, no, it seems like it's actually pretty fair. And that's good. That's how it should be. But there's also a statistically significant amount of counties where it is a problem. So you can point to that and you can say that is statistically racist. Does that require somebody to be racist? I guess so. But find them. Point them out. I don't know, man. It's a weird conversation.
I just don't think the two mindsets would be separable. I think that the political system would inform the racism of the racists. It would legitimize it. As Robin DiAngelo and other far leftists like herself think, power is the legitimating force.
Man.
So why wouldn't racism be legitimate in a system of racism? It's unlikely you would ever end up having it staffed by non-racists. But again, I don't think that that's really a fair characterization of what the United States is. The American Republic, I don't think is a white supremacist system. But I think that that's what they're saying when they say that, say, someone like Tucker Carlson is a white supremacist.
What would the fair outcome look like in regards to prisons? Okay, I can tell you right now, actually. That's a very good question. When we're looking at prison sentencing, we're looking at the disparities in prison sentencing between people of different demographics, specifically in race. We would see that, sure, there might be spikes in certain areas where maybe black people get sentenced for longer than white people. But you'd also see effectively, in a balanced system, because we're running with statistics and mathematics, that could also happen with white people as well. And when you add it all together, for the most part, it's pretty even within the margins. Then you want to put that along a line of like maybe 10, 20 years and see if it does stay within the margins. If it does, then we can actually affirmatively declare that there is an equity or in our prison sentencing, that there it's even, it's fair, okay? But we don't see that. We don't, especially when it comes to very specific types of drug crimes, like drug crimes in specific. We can see a massive sentencing disparity between race, and when you remove every other factor, and the only factor that seems to be the delineating factor is race, that means that the problem is racial, and the problem itself is a systemic one because it stems from a system. What is that called? What do you put those two words? What is it? What is that? 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 System, systemic racism? The thing is, too, what's really fascinating about it is saying that isn't really a gotcha. Saying that is a fuck. And it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't exist. And it's really easy for it not to exist. It just should not happen. If it just doesn't happen, then nobody has anything to fucking complain about. And that would be good. That would be really good. Nobody would have anything to bitch about. That's good. That's good stuff.
Or perhaps, other conservatives are white supremacists. I think
Nah, Tucker Carlson is straight up a white supremacist. Yeah, fuck Tucker Carlson.
what they're trying to say is the support for the American system is white supremacy. And as the American Republic, as the British Empire, was responsible for abolishing slavery and then continued to improve on the principles upon which they either developed or were founded, you find that racial discrimination becomes hatred. It becomes it becomes detestable. It becomes hateable.
Ooh, creepy kitty with the anthropology perspective. Maybe. You know what? We might do something with that a little bit later. Yeah. No, I feel you. It is very frustrating to be dealing with this, especially when you deal in statistics, when you deal in like analyzing and studying culture. It's so frustrating.
Nobody likes being racist. It's horrible. And again, like my father, as I said, I'm mixed race. My father has stories and has told me stories of when he was young and in England there were gangs of racists who would bully him and his brothers.
Yeah.
And it was rough, but
yeah, it sucks.
times change. People realize that's actually a cruel thing to do.
Yeah.
And they don't support it. And the general attitude changes because we actually live in countries that want to progress. We actually want to have moral improvements and moral innovations. So calling Tucker Carlson a white supremacist, calling myself a white supremacist.
No, Tucker Carlson is absolutely a white supremacist, but I still affirm I don't think that Sargon is a white supremacist. I think he I think he tries to skirt the line enough that functionally when people call him that, I don't really give that much of a shit about trying to correct them. But personally speaking, no, I don't think he's a white supremacist.
Calling anyone a white supremacist who isn't actually an avowed member of something like the KKK or someone.
See, there we go. Watering it down. If you're not the KKK, you're not a white supremacist. It doesn't matter if you think in racialized IQ, which is absolutely the hallmark of race supremacism, which, by the way, Carl has had numerous fucking people on his channel, platform, never challenged, and in fact is friends with people who believe in racialized IQ and race supremacism. But again, I'm not calling Carl a white supremacist.
Like Richard Spencer, who says, yes, I'm a racist, yes, I'm this, yes, I'm that. Calling these people white supremacists to try and paint them with the same brush, I think is actually a really slanderous thing to do. Just alleging it is just really grim. It's just disgusting.
I'm sorry, dude, but you don't get to play civility politics. You don't get to play civility politics, and this is going to be kind of shitty of me to say, but like it is very true. This is something that you had every opportunity to walk back on, but you made it intrinsically to your heart, to your soul, to your very well-being, like to who you are as a core person. You adopted this. You're the I wouldn't even rape you guy. You don't get to play civility politics. You can't be like, well, I find it very distasteful for somebody to say that maybe you're a white supremacist. I think so. That's my opinion. Ha 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 ha. You don't get to say that. You don't get to say that. I mean, you can have that opinion, fine, but you can't try and, like, levy some moral condemnation of somebody because they're not being civil enough for you. Fuck off, dude. Come on.
It's a really disgusting thing to do, especially if you have an ancestry that includes
That doesn't mean shit. You could be the whitest motherfucker on the planet. You could be the whitest motherfucker on the planet, and you would still be judged by the same fucking rules. You fucking coward. You fucking coward. You absolute fucking water-brained goddamn idiot. You fucking pussy. I can't be a white supremacist. Look at my brown fucking grandfather. You fucking pussy. I don't give a fuck if your grandfather is white. I would still judge you the same way. I don't give a fuck if you were black. I would still judge you the same way. I know because I shit all over Candace Owens 4 fucking years ago. I'm sorry, dude, but this is so cowardly. This is so low-rent bullshit. God damn, dude. Ugh, this is embarrassing.
persecution of your ancestors on the basis of their race. It just seems an absolutely disgusting thing to do to me. And to do to anyone who's in this sort of situation. But especially anyone who is a conservative who is not a white supremacist but approves of the American system. Like, there's no way you can use a standard definition of white supremacist to someone like Tucker Carlson. So the academic definition that Robin DiAngelo is using is greatly expanded, muchly contested, but of course
Everybody hates
not
Robin
by people who
DiAngelo.
disagree with her in person.
Everybody hates
contested
Robin DiAngelo,
in
dude.
the public space, as it were. And I think it's just a moral wrong to do this. It doesn't make sense, especially if you're talking to someone from Europe who isn't an avowed white supremacist, who hasn't explicitly taken on this foreign ideology. It just doesn't make any sense in a place like Europe to call people white supremacists.
Yeah.
It's very obviously an American import, and I think it is generally quite grim and done purely for political purposes and for political advantage, possibly because that person has lost the argument. But anyway, folks, this was just some thoughts on the concept of white supremacy and how
I have some concepts I want to talk about. So here's my concepts that I really want to talk about when it comes to Carl. And I'll try and make this as brief as I possibly can, because honestly, this is some shit that just fucking drives me crazy. Okay? Look, here's the main thing that really has been bothering me. In the last few videos that I've made about Carl here on my second channel, just ranting and raving and, losing my fucking mind, I have identified something that has really bothered me, okay? The thing that really bothers me is that Carl seems to be obsessed with a very, very specific notion. Now, when he says that he wants to improve society, he wants to improve this, he wants to improve that, he does not focus on things that can actually improve society. In fact, the things that he seems to be obsessed about right now, especially when he was talking to Stefan Molyneux, is about trying to instill a sense of duty towards one's country, towards one's culture, towards the West. And largely this seems to be stemming around the idea of people needing to breed, because he seems to feel like there's a type of competition that's happening between the breeding of people from other disparate cultures that are not the same culture as him, and the lower birth rates of cultures around him. Now, some people have taken this to say that he is a white supremacist because they believe that there is a racialized component. They're right, there is a racialized component, but that's not the centralized point of it. They don't really quite understand that there's a very, very surgically split hair there, okay? Here's the problem. We can identify exactly what Carl is talking about because, yes, of course, if there was, say, a English family and they were black and they gave birth to children and they were black and they were raised as English and they had Western values, of course. Sure, fine. But the thing is, and this is the main problem, when he starts to talk about race and culture and improving these types of things, he doesn't talk about progressive ideas. He doesn't talk about progressive concepts like taking in, say, if you're going to have migrants, culture and expanding cultural programs and trying to make assimilation programs that these things are going to be good. You can have more English by just teaching better English values. He doesn't talk about that. He talks about breeding. That's what he talks about. He doesn't talk about if you're going to have people in the country, maybe improve money towards education to get them more of a proper English education so that they're more exposed to the English ideas. Maybe trying to put forth more engaging ideas, more money towards cultural enrichment. He doesn't talk about that. He talks about breeding. So that's why I say, like, Sargon of Akkad is not a race supremacist. He's not. I don't think he gives a shit if people are white or black. I don't think he cares. I don't think he fucking cares at all. But he is kind of an ethno-nationalist. Kind of. And especially because he's less worried about trying to put forth the concepts of spreading a superior, more progressive society, and he's more invested in breeding. And that is a problem. I really think that that's a big fucking problem. You know? That it just is what it is. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, and here's a funny screenshot that my buddy sent me. This is a shit fight that we were having over on Twitter. Funny how you did a video series about cults and how they would coerce their community. There's illusionary choice of duty and the manipulation to preserve the order against perceived chaos and destruction is straight out of your old video. And Sargon's response was, cults do indeed instill a view on duty, but that isn't the bad thing about them. But this isn't the thing about them that is bad. Okay. All right, man. All right. Well, best of luck to you. Yeah. I'm very sorry everybody's calling you white supremacist, Carl.